for Donald Trump getting a $250
Harriet
bill?
Tubman? Do we have to do a history lesson?
But why over anyone else? Why over Andrew Jackson?
I mean, because I think she represents the importance of regular people in this country.
I also think it's important to note that under Joe Biden, they also delayed the Harriet Tubman bill, so it's not just necessarily a Trump problem. That being said,
they revived it, and it takes time.
Sure. That being said,
yeah, look. I mean, Harriet Tubman represents everything that Donald Trump is not. Right? There's somebody who put her body on the line, who was a regular person.
Donald Trump was shot and nearly killed for trying to be president.
Stop. Okay,
no, it did happen. I hate to remind you.
My God. Okay. Well, you should talk to the Maga folks who don't believe that Butler was real. But that's a different conversation.
That's
There's a lot of people out there that are saying, including Candace Owens.
Now, I want to make sure that you guys stick with me to the very end today, because I have some very interesting things that I want to speak to you guys about at the end of this clip. But in this clip, we see Abby Phillip and Republican Maga loyalist Breonna Lyman, I believe her name is, getting to a bit of a tense exchange over Harriet Tubman being put on a dollar bill versus Donald Trump being put on a dollar bill. And you can probably imagine already what it is that the Republican Breonna Lyman had to say. As usual, let's watch the clip in full and stick with me to the end so I can give you guys my thoughts, my commentary and perspective. Let's get into it.
10 years ago, a plan was introduced to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill. So what's the status of that now? Here's the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent.
Is Treasury still planning to put Harriet Tubman on the $20 bill?
We are not at present.
Bessent didn't elaborate on that, but when he was asked about plans to put President Trump's image on a potential $250 bill, he left the door open.
Well, the 250 requires an act of Congress because you can't have a living person, and it was to commit for the 250th anniversary. For us to change on an existing bill, whether it's a 1 through 100, takes many years in advance.
Over the last several months, a lot of people have asked me, what's up with the Harriet Tubman thing? Now we know it's not going anywhere because they're really focused on getting Trump's name, his signature, his face on our currency. For what reason, I'm really not sure.
Well, and to be clear, the $250 bill is commemorative, so it's not necessarily legal tender that's going to be out in circulation. I also think it's important to note that under Joe Biden, they also delayed the Harriet Tubman bill, so it's not just necessarily a Trump problem. That being said,
they revived it, and it takes time.
Sure. That being said,
I don't think it's fair to say that they delayed it.
Look, you put faces on money to commemorate American icons, and I think that there are only a limited number of bills: 1, 2, 5, 10, 20. 150. So there has to be a very selective process. And Harriet Tubman absolutely deserves recognition, which she has recognition already. But I do think that the burden is put on Democrats to explain why Harriet Tubman, first of all, out of every option, hold on, let me finish, please.
Right.
Out of every option, especially someone like Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is a man who nonetheless, he saved the Union during the nullification crisis. He was a war hero in 1815. He actually vetoed the second charter of the bank, which was seen at the time as a way to take power away from the rich and elites. This is a man who...
What's the argument against Harriet Tubman?
What's the argument for Harriet Tubman?
What's the argument for Donald Trump getting a $250
Harriet
bill?
Tubman? Do we have to do a history lesson?
But why over anyone else? Why over Andrew Jackson?
I mean, because I think she represents the importance of regular people in this country taking justice and history in their own hands and doing the right thing.
But the purpose of commemorative faces on money is not just for great
women
Americans.
Like her, if you're a conservative, you should love Harriet Tubman. She was a gun-toting
it's not an argument.
Abolitionist.
It's not that she's not
mentioned that. I don't know.
She was a everyday American hero.
And in that 250
I don't know, but my point is, I think in fairness, I don't hear conservatives saying she does not deserve any kind of recognition.
What she just said. I didn't say any kind of recognition.
The conversation has always been...
we have to make a case for why Harriet Tubman...
But this administration has been
why should she displace Andrew Jackson?
The argument is about the replacement of Andrew Jackson. That was the initial argument, and that was why there was pushback initially. Put her on a new bill. I don't care. I mean, I don't think...
Put her on the 250.
Put her on the 250.
So I would be okay with that as well.
Is Donald Trump on the 250 when they would have to pass an act of Congress?
But it's not going to happen. I don't think it should. I think it was stupid for them to even have this conversation. I get that Harriet Tubman is deserving of something, 100%. Put it on a new bill. this idea that we're going to suddenly just remove people from tender for political reasons, for historical, whatever the reason is, you just open up a slippery slope. Why specific to Jackson? Why not Washington? Why, you can make these arguments forever. So why don't we just be respectful and say a new bill?
Look, I mean, Harriet Tubman represents everything that Donald Trump is not, right? There's somebody who put her body on the line, who was a regular person.
Donald Trump was shot and nearly killed for trying to be president.
Stop.
No,
Okay,
it did happen. I hate to remind you.
My God. Okay, well, you should talk to the MAGA folks who don't believe that Butler was real, but
That
that's
is
a different
not
conversation.
something that's an
There's a
actual
lot of people out
conversation.
there that are saying, including Candace Owens.
You
but
believe that
regardless-
it's not real?
No, I believe.
Okay, well,
no,
then
I
just
believe
accept it.
But
and make your
regardless,
point.
Wait, can we talk about the bill?
let's talk about the
Harriet
bill instead of
Tubman,
making it
please?
about something else. I mean, Harriet Tubman put her life and her body on the line. She deserves recognition. Donald Trump is desperate for some type of cultural relevancy. He's putting his name on everything. He put his name on our passports this year. He's putting his face on the dollar bill. It's disgusting.
He put his face in the
Right.
passport, which, as far as I know, has never been done
He
before.
is
He put
afraid.
his name on the Kennedy Center, which has now been removed. He put his name on the
Here's
passport.
what a viewer says. We have slave owners on bills. We can have Harriet on a bill.
Agreed.
And it would be the first African American on legal tender. I mean, in 250 years of American history, there has never been an African American on a bill.
I'd argue MLK is probably a better option than Harriet Tubman if we're trying to find someone who fits a certain demographic.
The universe of honorable people who could deserve such an honor is massive. The question that keeps coming back to me is, why is President Trump so obsessed with all of this self-aggrandizement, putting his name and face on the passport, on dollar bills, on buildings all over Washington, D.C., marring buildings and changing the names illegally to put his name on it? It is in such poor taste and out of step with exactly where the country happens to be at the moment. It's bad for him and his legacy, I suspect, and bad for the party that he is supposed to represent. And it doesn't really seem to serve the country in any sort of
Well, he's a narcissist. That's why he wants to put his name on everything, because he's a narcissist with a frail ego who wants affirmation and approval and wants to build legacy and things. That's the way he does it, not understanding that the first and next Democrat who comes is going to remove all of that. He literally is like the human version of a dog that wants to pee on every hydrant in his way and mark his territory.
I mean, but he's doing it because he doesn't have a legacy, so he's trying to
That is
force one
so
on
false.
With that imagery, we'll.
So, let me just ask first and foremost, what do you guys think the reason is behind why I believe her, Brianna Lyman, sorry. I was thinking of Lydia Moynihan or whatever her name is. Why do you think Brianna Lyman would prefer Andrew Jackson over Harriet Tubman? Let me know down in the comment section below. Because one of the things about this administration and MAGA is these people are never, ever, ever going to escape the racist allegations. They're not. And they know exactly what it is that they're doing. That's the exact reason why Scott Bessent is entertaining the idea of putting Donald Trump on a dollar bill, all while they're not even entertaining and looking at the idea of Harriet Tubman being put on a dollar bill. Now, when you actually take a look at Harriet Tubman and what she stood for and what it is that she's about, escaped slavery in Maryland in 1849, fleeing to Philadelphia, returning to the South roughly about 13 times, risking her life to guard about 70 enslaved people, never lost a single passenger on any of these missions. During the Civil War, she served in the Union Army as a cook, a nurse, and an armed scout. She famously led a river raid in 1863. After the war, she was active in the women's suffrage movement. She is literally remembered as a symbol of courage, resistance, and the fight for freedom and equality. When you take a look at everything that it is that she stands for, this is the complete opposite of what this administration wants the American people and anyone to know. That's the reason as to why they're doing everything that they possibly can to remove America's racist past and America's racist history from the history books. That's exactly the reason. Now, it's interesting when you actually go and you do research, because if you listen to what it is that Brianna Lyman said, she says, one, I have Andrew Jackson on there. Now, while I'm saying that, I'm not saying that Andrew Jackson shouldn't be put on there, but it's very, very understanding and clear Why is it that of all the people that it is that she mentioned Andrew Jackson? Well, when you do your research, what you find is this, that Andrew Jackson was an owner of enslaved people for most of his adult life. And then when you actually take a look, you can take a look at some of the racist things that it is that he stood behind, such as the Indian Removal Act of 1830. If you take a look that he defended and expanded the institution of slavery throughout his political career, and as president, he supported policies that were favorable to slaveholders. See, what you have to understand with this administration is that they are very specific and very clear in exactly what it is that they're doing. Not just this administration, but the mouth and the talking pieces for the administration. Brianna Lyman knew exactly the reason why she said Andrew Jackson as opposed to Harriet Tubman. She knew exactly what it is that she was doing. And this is what I said in the beginning. These people love the undertones, but they won't just come out and say it outright, because that's how they'll probably go ahead and get cancelled. Unless you're Donald Trump, you can just post pictures of apes. But they will do things and they'll give, like I said, undertones. And as a result of it, you have people like this Brianna Lyman that are given a platform to speak. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. As usual, hype up the video, give the video a thumbs up, and hit subscribe if you haven't already. See you guys in the next one.